Dave here. Um, Today I'm just going to be telling you a story. And one of the reasons I'm telling you this story is to give you a little window into what's going on in our Sunday evening service. We're in the book of 1 Samuel right now for our Sunday evening service. Well, this story is about a rich man named Nabal. His name means foolish, which makes you wonder about his parents. Why do you name a child foolish? But Nabal had a beautiful and wise wife. Now, we read this in the 25th chapter of 1 Samuel. So our characters in our story are Nabal, his beautiful wife Abigail, and David and his 600-man army. The story takes place in the region of Maon. In this area at Carmel, right where Nabal and his wife live, is a monument to Saul's victory over the Amalekites. It was a tremendous victory, and God commanded him to fight the Amalekites, which he did. But he did not do it the way God told him to, and God was very unhappy with him. And as a matter of fact, that and other actions of Saul resulted in Samuel telling Saul that he was no longer king in God's eyes, and that God had chosen another. And then Samuel anointed David as the new king of Israel. Well, Saul, even though he knows that God has told him he's no longer king, even though he knows, and we learned this in chapter 24, that Saul knows that David is the anointed, that he's going to be king. Even though he knows this, he is trying very hard to protect his dynasty. Regardless of what God says, he tries to kill David. He's chasing David all over the place, and that's why David is now estranged from the capital, and he's on the run. And 600, well, it began with 400, but now he's up to 600 men are following David. Well, this very rich man Nabal, by the way, a kinsman of David, has thousands of sheep. He's a very wealthy man, which he is shearing in the area of Carmel. Well, David and his men have been up in the mountains around this area, and they have been protecting the shepherds and the sheep that Nabal owns. And so when it come time for the shearing of the sheep, David sends some men down to greet Nabal and request a gift. Well, Nabal knows, I believe, because his wife knows, that David is the anointed king of Israel. He knows that. But when he goes into town, when he goes up and down the road to Carmel there, he sees this great statue, or a great pillar of some sort, that's extolling Saul's power and his victory over the Amalekites. Well, when the men from David came, Nabal refused to give them a gift, and he abused David verbally to his men, and he sent them back empty-handed. He acted upon the reality that he saw, the evidence of the powerful king in the monuments that Saul had built to himself. And Saul also had a very large army. At the time that he defeated the Amalekites, he had an army of 200,000. So David's 600 men are nothing. But Abigail, his wise wife, saw a greater reality. And she, just like her husband, knew that David had been anointed king of Israel, and that was good enough for her. So she took foods and supplies to David and his men. Nabal was judged by God, and actually God took his life 10 days later. So, it was common knowledge that David was anointed by Samuel to replace Saul. Even Saul knew it, according to our last chapter. And today, in Christian circles, it is common knowledge that God has a different agenda than man. In that our agenda is to go into all the world, to preach the gospel, to baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and to teach them to obey everything that he has commanded. And we're promised that he'll be with us to the end of the age until this task is finished. Well, those are our marching orders. And I just want us to be careful not to be caught up with the agenda of this world. We have so much noise coming at us as a result of this election, and people are all caught up in it. We need to be careful that our agenda hasn't changed. How will we reach those on the left if our Facebook, if the things that we say are abusive to them? How will we reach them with the gospel? How will we reach those on the right if the things that we say, the name calling, everything is if we lower them in our opinion as to their intelligence or whatever? How in the world are we going to reach those people, left or right, if we are abusing them like Nabal did? We need to see a greater reality than the physical things that are going on around us. We need to see that Jesus is coming soon. We need to see that our agenda has not changed. God's agenda hasn't changed. We're to be following him. We're to be excited about his agenda. And we're to set our affections on things above, not on things of this earth. And by doing this, we will prove ourselves pleasing in God's eyes, and we will reach many with the gospel of Christ. So that's our goal. And I hope I've given you something to think about.